Okay, this is Elise. Welcome to my screencast-o-matic um, on the Common Core standards, on my observations of the Common Core standards. So we're going to start an intro here. Let's go under key design. Um, Essentially, what I took from this specifically, I really like the mention of the flexibility in the later years in high school. Assuming that the students have acquired and successfully mastered the standards in the lower grades, I think that there should be a little bit more flexibility in the later years to kind of allow teachers to encourage the students to practice these mastered skills in fun and engaging ways. And so I think flexibility really kind of helps to allow that. I really like this focus on results rather than means. Again, I think that the Common Core Standards really does allow some freedom for the teachers in terms of curriculum and how essentially they get the students where they need to be by the end of that particular school year. And then I really like this mention of shared responsibility for students' literacy development. Essentially, what this is saying to me is that it's not any one person's responsibility, that the development of literacy in our students is kind of a synergistic process that's occurring within the school, involving essentially several components and elements. So, okay, moving on. Let's look at the specific standards for grade 7. That is where I am teaching currently. So we'll start with reading literature, grade 7. Okay, what I noticed in the standards for 7th graders in reading is there's a real emphasis on using the text as evidence. So I think that in earlier years, or people that might not have yet mastered this ability, it's really easy to just kind of read a text and then go off of memory to kind of discuss it or consider it, or to prove arguments or analysis. In 7th grade standards, students are expected by the end of 7th grade to be able to look back into the text and use textual evidence to, like it says here, for example, to support an analysis, right? Under craft and structure, so we're looking at, like, for example, here we're looking at figurative language, we're looking at structure. So essentially and then points of view or perspective. Students are expected to look at these different elements of a text and understand how each kind of impact or lends itself to the meaning. Let's go back up to reading. We're going to go into informational texts for grade 7. So what I found were these are very, very similar standards to the reading literature standards. Again, there's an emphasis on using the text. In this case, though, we're more likely to use the text to provide evidence or support an analysis versus, an argument versus an analysis. Obviously, they'll be analyzing these informational texts as well, but as they develop as writers, we're going to be doing different types of writing that would require them to support claims using textual evidence. Craft and structure, these are all very similar. Again, point of view, we're looking at structure, integration of knowledge and ideas. This is what I found was really interesting. I like that we, as teachers, need to provide students several opportunities to listen to the same text, or I guess be exposed to the same text through different means. So like it says here, text, audio, video, or multimedia. So I think that this does several things. It's good for students to receive different means of the same thing because it caters to different learning styles, but also according to the standards, the students need to understand how each of these essentially it says here, for example, how the delivery of a speech affects the impacts of the word. So I guess we're just looking at impact, again, impact of text versus audio versus multimedia or video. Let's go to the writing standards for grade 7. The writing standards were quite extensive. These are the longest list of standards for 7th graders. And to sum it up, it essentially requires that seventh graders by the end of the year should be able to write several different types of texts. So we're taking all of those standards and all of those skills that we developed under the reading standards, like essentially using the text, considering structure and different literary devices, and we're putting it to use in writing. So the students need to be able to write arguments to support claims against with relevant evidence. They need to be able to write informative and explanatory texts. And I really like this one here. The students by the end of seventh grade should be able to write narratives to develop real or imagined experiences or events using effective technique, relevant descriptive details, and well-structured event sequences. So essentially, we're looking at the skills that should have been developed in younger grades in terms of understanding literature, understanding how structure, how figurative speech, how point of view lends itself to meaning and serves a purpose, and then we're expecting that they should be able to put those skills to use and write their own narrative. So I thought that was really cool. Let's really quickly, because I'm going over my time here, let's go up to, we're going to be looking at, what are we doing? Oh, language. No, speaking. Speaking and listening, grade 7. Okay. So there's a real emphasis here on collaboration, which I think is really important to foster in these younger ages. Not just because obviously group learning is a really effective way to learn and retain material, but also because these students need to be prepared to participate in collaborative efforts in the future, be it college experiences or even like career-based collaborative situations. So by encouraging our students to be collaborative and teaching them those skills younger on, they'll be better prepared for those situations, I think. Lastly, I want to make specific note of this standard here. Let me see. Presents claims and finding, emphasizing, nope, that's not it. Hang on, let me find it. Oh, here it is. Include multimedia components, visual displays, and presentations to clarify claims and findings and emphasize salient points. Salient. I think that this is important for me to, this is a concern of mine because I am so far behind where I think I should be in terms of using technology in general, even for things like PowerPoint. So if I'm going to expect that my students really utilize these and utilize them effectively, I know that this is something that I personally need to work on myself. So that's definitely a concern of mine. I do see how it's important because obviously we need to prepare our students for the evolving world and technology as it's moving forward. So having them utilize it in the classroom is one way to do that, obviously. But again, I'm quite far from where I feel like I need to be, and definitely far from where my students are probably going to be. So definitely something I should probably work on in the near future. All right, so that is my Screencast-O-Matic, 8 minutes and 24 seconds in. I'm sorry. I'm going to end it here. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday.